Enough excuses. Quentin Johnston has reached the season where flashes have to become fear, and Mike McDaniel is coaching him like he knows exactly where that explosion is hiding. Behind that challenge is a much bigger offensive shift. Joe Alt going from reliable wall to moving weapon, Omarion Hampton stepping into a system built for his burst, and one supposed Chargers breakout story that cannot survive even a basic fact check. Los Angeles has real momentum, but hype gets no free pass here. Subscribe, then tell me, breakout or just another tease? Start with the part too many people keep avoiding. Quentin Johnston's rookie season was not close to good enough for a first-round pick. The frustration from Chargers fans did not just come out of nowhere. There were drops, disappearing stretches, and that annoying feeling that Los Angeles had spent a valuable pick on another project who could not help Justin Herbert when the pressure went up. But locking Johnston inside that old picture would be lazy too. He has improved, legitimately. In 2025, Johnston put up career highs with 735 receiving yards, 14 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns. Those numbers do not make him one of the NFL's elite receivers, but they show a trajectory that Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz, and now McDaniel clearly see. The most expensive proof came when Los Angeles exercised his fifth-year option, guaranteeing him roughly $18 million for 2027. Front offices do not make that kind of commitment out of charity. This regime did not even draft him in 2023. By choosing to keep him, they are putting their own evaluation on the line. Then we heard that practice conversation. McDaniel was not giving Johnston some empty confidence boost. He was correcting him at the top of the route while still protecting the trait that could make him brutal in this offense: his drive phase. We are talking about the first 5 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, where a receiver threatens the defender with speed, weight, and direction before making his break. McDaniel wants Johnston to stay uncomfortable during this part of the process because polishing everything too early could take away the violence in that first burst. Put another way, he would rather tighten the turn later than calm down the explosion before it ever shows up. When McDaniel says that drive phase could tear up the league, it reveals what is being discussed away from the headlines. The Chargers believe there is still a much more dangerous receiver waiting to come out of this player, but nobody in Los Angeles should take the pressure off now. Potential is no longer enough. That contract option represents confidence, not immunity. Johnston needs to turn that acceleration into separation, clutch catches, and steady production for Herbert. McDaniel appears to have identified the weapon. Sanjay Lal was already working on that area of Johnston's game. Now the offense will be built to put athletes in motion and create space after the catch. That combination could finally unlock Johnston. It also takes away his last excuses. In 2026, he will not simply be trying to justify where he was drafted. He will be proving that he deserves to remain an important piece of a team that needs to attack the AFC right now. If that burst really starts burning secondaries, the change will not be quiet. The entire league will feel the shock. While Johnston tries to turn acceleration into a constant threat, Joe Alt faces a different kind of transformation. He has already proven that he can survive at the highest level. The question now is how much damage he can do when the system stops treating him only like an anchor and starts using the freakish athlete inside that massive frame. Over his first 2 seasons, Alt built a reputation for stability on the right side. In Greg Roman's gap-heavy blocking system, his job often involved controlling the point of contact, sustaining defenders, and keeping the structure from falling apart. When healthy, he handled that responsibility with rare maturity. Quick hands, long arms, discipline, very few wasted reps. Mike McDaniel and new offensive line coach Butch Barry do not want a line standing still and waiting for contact. They want coordinated movement, fast angles, and 5 blockers shifting the defensive front as one unit. That is where Alt could become terrifying. Before the 2024 NFL Draft, Lance Zierlein highlighted Alt's ability to reach the second level. At the Combine, Alt ran the 40-yard dash in 5.05 seconds and earned a 94 athleticism score through the NFL's metrics, second among all tackles at the event. That is not just some pretty number buried inside an old scouting report. In an outside zone system, that mobility can decide whether the running back sees an open lane or a traffic jam. The guards usually carry the heaviest burden, and Cole Strange and Kayode Awusika will need to prove they have enough agility to execute the design. But the play does not work in separate departments. If Alt cannot reach the edge, arrives late to the defender, or breaks the unit's alignment, the running back's read gets poisoned before he ever makes his cut. If Alt executes the way his athletic profile says he can, he could seal the edge, climb to linebackers, and create running lanes that simply did not exist in the previous offense. Barry still has one technical issue he cannot ignore. Because of his height, Alt sometimes leans forward to compensate for difficulty lowering his center of gravity. Against bull rushers, that can compromise his base. Asking him to move more without protecting his balance would mean trading a proven strength for a poorly calibrated experiment. That is where the behind-the-scenes work matters, unlocking his mobility without tearing apart the technique that already made him an elite protector. Think about what that could do for Herbert. An offensive line that can flow laterally forces the defense to chase, creates room for play action, and reduces the predictability that suffocated Los Angeles. Alt does not need to be fixed. He needs to be expanded. If McDaniel and Barry get this transformation right, the dependable tackle could become the physical engine of a much faster offense. And when a wall starts moving with purpose, opposing defenses do not find protection. They find impact. At this point, I need to hit the brakes for one simple reason. The third story showed up wearing powder blue and gold, but it does not belong to the Chargers. The article identifies Byron Young as an under-the-radar breakout candidate for 2026, but it is talking about the Los Angeles Rams edge rusher, who is coming off a 12-sack season and a Pro Bowl appearance. The argument itself gives it away. Young is expected to receive more one-on-one opportunities because Myles Garrett would be rushing from the opposite side. That does not describe Jim Harbaugh's defense. Does that sound like a small detail? It is not. When an article mixes up two franchises from the same city and turns a Rams player into a Chargers breakout candidate, it creates false expectations for fans trying to understand their own roster. We are not going to cover up the mistake just to fill time. Defending the Bolts also means respecting the people who follow this team every single day. There is still a valuable lesson buried inside that confusion. The reasoning behind Byron Young's projected leap is fundamentally sound. A dominant pass rusher changes the math of protection. When an offensive line has to slide help toward one star, somebody on the opposite side gets single blocks, cleaner angles, and precious extra time to attack the quarterback. Young already produced at a high level for the Rams, and Garrett's presence could create even more opportunities. That is Rams analysis. It is not Chargers news. That is exactly where Joe Ortiz needs to examine his own defense without blinking. Who will force opposing offenses into that kind of choice? Who can command enough attention to free the rusher on the other side? A defense trying to face Patrick Mahomes and survive the AFC cannot rely only on tough coverage or perfectly designed blitzes. It needs to generate pressure with four and force the offense to decide which threat it is willing to leave alone. The bad information should not produce a made-up answer for Los Angeles. It should raise the pressure on the actual plan. Harbaugh built his identity around strength, discipline, and control of the trenches. If the Chargers have an edge rusher ready to break out in 2026, that growth needs to show up in real production. Pressures, sacks, forced fumbles, and game-changing plays when Herbert needs the football back. If they do not have that player, Ortiz cannot pretend the answer will simply materialize. So here is the call to our community, but I do not want a lazy answer. Think like the general manager. Looking at this Chargers defense, would you trust internal development or attack the market before the season? Give me your solution and defend the price you would be willing to pay. The war room is open. Just do not sign Byron Young in the comments and put him in the wrong locker room. Now picture the ball in Omarion Hampton's hands. The line begins flowing laterally. The linebackers race to shut down the edge. For a split second, nobody knows where the hit is coming. That is the moment when this new Chargers offense could come alive. Not with a predetermined run crashing into a loaded wall, but with Hampton reading the movement, planting his foot, and attacking the space the defense just gave up. Mike McDaniel builds much of his offense around outside zone. The goal is not merely to pile up rushing yards. It stretches the defense, manipulates the linebacker's eyes, and makes every initial action look like the beginning of 2 or 3 different possibilities. Once the running game creates that fear, the play-action game, quick passing attack, and yards after catch opportunities begin to breathe. Herbert stops facing a comfortable defense and starts commanding a unit that has been forced to hesitate. Hampton played only 9 games as a rookie, but still averaged 4.4 yards per carry inside an offense that often ran out of answers when opponents shut down the interior. His second season will not be a simple continuation. It will demand a different way of seeing the field. In McDaniel's system, the running back has to track the blocks as they develop, recognize how the defensive front reacts, and decide whether to stay on course, cut inside, or explode toward the outside. That is a serious mental responsibility for a player only 3 years removed from high school. His time at North Carolina, however, gives us an encouraging clue. With Chip Lindsey coordinating the offense and Mac Brown running the program, Hampton worked primarily with power concepts and gap blocking. But he also handled both inside zone and outside zone runs. He does not arrive as a specialist in McDaniel's system. He arrives with a broader vocabulary than some people realize. I love this fit because Hampton's greatest strength is not passive patience. It is his ability to turn a decision into immediate violence. Once he finds the opening, his burst can rip through the first level before the defense has time to reset its angles. If Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, and the interior line move the front the way this scheme demands, Hampton will get exactly the kind of runway that lets him turn containment into explosion. The pressure does not disappear, though. Availability matters. 9 games are not enough for a running back expected to carry an offense toward January. Hampton needs to stay on the field, master the reads, and prove he can handle volume without sacrificing efficiency. The Chargers invested heavily in him because they saw more than a power back. McDaniel is now responsible for revealing the entire package. If that happens, Herbert will be one of the biggest beneficiaries. A defense worried about Hampton cannot attack the quarterback with the same freedom. The safeties creep forward, passing windows open. The receivers have more room to use their speed. This young running back's second season could become the point when the offense stops reacting to opponents and starts delivering the first hit. Built in Southern California, charged by the Bolts. Quentin Johnston attacking the line with a different level of confidence. Joe Alt turning mobility into control. Omarion Hampton forcing defenses to choose their own poison. That is how Mike McDaniel's transformation stops being a June conversation and starts changing Sundays. No scheme wins by itself. Every player must master his assignment, stay available, and execute when the AFC tightens the game. The Chargers have the tools to shift gears in 2026. Now they have to prove they can keep their foot on the gas. Subscribe to Los Angeles Chargers News today and follow every signal of this transformation. The standards do not drop here, the energy does not die, and the commitment remains the same. Bolt up!